I'd like to call to order the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners regular meeting for November 17, 2021. Roll call.
President Zipfel.
Here.
Vice President Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Andrus.
Here.
Commissioner Lees.
Here.
Commissioner Zimmerman.
Here.
I'd like to ask Vice President Rogers to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. Okay, before we move on with the agenda, because we made a slight amendation at the conclusion of the amendment of the agenda with regard to a real estate tax appeal settlement, there needs to be a motion, and it needs to be approved in order to be added to this evening's agenda. So the chair will make the motion to amend the agenda to add the real estate tax appeal settlement. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lees. Any questions or comments by any of the commissioners or by residents? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of amending the agenda to add that item, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. And so the agenda that you're going to see up on the screen, that's just slightly adjusted, we can move ahead with that. All right, so in addition, I still need to go through the formality of approving the agenda as a whole. So is there a motion for approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus, second by Commissioner Lees. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Okay, citizens' comments. So we have a number of people here this evening to discuss an issue that's I think, is a little later in the agenda. If that is what you're here for, which is the Walnut Street traffic island discussion with the neighbors, feel free to we'll give neighbors residents the opportunity to speak then. Having said that, if there's any citizens' comments on other agenda items, now is a great time to go up to the podium. All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to our consent items. Is there a motion to move into the record the consent items that are listed in your agenda?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Vice President Rogers, second by Commissioner Andrus. For those who are with us and watching, those consent items include the Board of Commissioners' regular meeting minutes of October 27, the police report of October 2021, the treasurer's report for November 2021, and bills payable. Paid bills in the amount of $5,783.44, and unpaid bills in the amount of $743,668.39. With that, I will call the question. All in favor of moving those consent items into the record, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, those are moved into the record. So I know we do have a number of people who would like to talk about the Walnut Street traffic islands. So we thought we would move that to the front of the agenda so people could jump right in. And so before we get into the committee reports, we're going to do that. So Commissioner Lees, I kind of stole your thunder.
Okay.
If you want to proceed, sorry, I just was thinking more about the agenda than the substance. So why don't you lead us off if that's okay?
So last year we had a vote of all the residents on East Walnut Street, and 2/3 of the residents wanted the traffic islands removed. We discussed it. We had a meeting at the Calmer Firehouse. A bunch of the neighbors came up. We had talked about the options and what was going to happen if we took the islands out, that it could increase speeds on the road, and that historically there have always been high speeds on that road. Was it last regular meeting, I believe it was, former Commissioner Brown asked for a traffic study, which was completed. We have the results of which, Aaron, I'll let you go over those, but sure. Real quickly, the residents had talked about making the islands more visible instead of removing them, the ones that came to the meeting at the firehouse. And we had considered doing that, and in the time that it took between that meeting and when we were just getting ready to make those islands more visible, we had an accident on Walnut Street where the vehicle struck a house. And the homeowner is insistent that we remove those islands from in front of his residence. So at the request of former Commissioner Brown, we did a traffic study. Aaron, I'll let you talk about that and what we found with the traffic study. And then it's up to the neighbors to decide what y'all want to do. I've had people both for and against, but it's been more for removing the islands than against removing the islands. So, Aaron, if you would, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Commissioner Lees. We have some new updated data, like Commissioner Lee said. Anton is in the audience. He's our traffic engineer. He can supplement if you have any specific questions about the study. I'll just summarize. So Anton's group was out in September, so it's recent, just to get a sense on some of the changes since these traffic islands were installed. So what we found out with this data is that the volume, so cars going down the road, has decreased significantly as of 2021 compared to prior years. Now, April '07 was the data collected prior to the traffic islands. '09 was right after the traffic islands were installed. And then 21 obviously was just a few months ago. So you see, volume has been reduced. Now, obviously, you could certainly argue that that's because of COVID. That's because of several other reasons, and Anton notes that in his report. But this is just pure data. How it's interpreted is up for discussion this evening. Now, in addition to volume, speed, which is obviously a big concern with the residents of Walnut. We hear from them often. We got to know them pretty well over the years. Speed previously, before the traffic islands, the 95th percentile, meaning 95% of the cars coming down are traveling under 40 as of '07 before the islands went in. Islands go in, that speed dropped to 36. What we found out 2 months ago is that now the 95th percentile is up to 44. So 95% of the vehicles coming down Walnut are going 44 or under. So it's data to help us make a decision, or the board make a decision. Volume has been down, speed went up. You can certainly interpret that several different ways. People maybe are used to the traffic islands now, and they know how to maneuver around them. The residents obviously live it every day, so their feedback is very important in the process. But that's our new data since we've had, as Commissioner Lee said, the town hall meeting. It's almost a year ago now. It was January, I believe, in the fire hall.
Correct.
And then communication afterwards. So here we are, and I'd imagine the residents would like to comment, but Commissioner Lees, that's the data we now have on this corridor.
Thank you. So I'd like to invite the residents of East Walnut Street one at a time to come up. If you'd like to speak, please, for the record, state your name and your address, and we're more than happy to listen to your comments.
My name is Richard Byrne, 2938 East Walnut. That island's down the street. I've got one on one side of the driveway and two driveways over. What you're missing on your report is, number one, you don't take into account how many trucks come down and hit that island right across the street from my house, where when the wind blows, it's already ripped it out once, and now the wind's blowing and my electric's going up and down because they keep hitting it. I had called the township about it a couple years ago. I get a thing put up on my roof, which I'm just the renter, been there 10 years, planned on buying it, but now I'm going to wait and see. Electric company will come out and put those wires up, but they hit that island across the street, lifts the whole truck up. The other thing your traffic report doesn't show is that 45 miles an hour, that's an average, because I can tell you right now, we have people come down there at 60. The other thing is, when they pass the first island, coming up from County Line Road, that's on the right-hand side, they're no longer in their lane. They're coming down through the middle. All right, when a tractor trailer comes, he's got to hit that island no matter what, because the cars aren't on their lane. Since I've been there, there's been 14 accidents. 5 of them took the axles and put them inside, ripped them out. One of them put them up into the trunk of his car, didn't even realize he had no brake calipers. 4th of July, he was drunk, and he was trying to still drive away. I've called the police department. I've called the township over the years. You're talking about speed, but there's not a cop sitting out there making money every rush hour. Every morning, every night, this township could make a fortune. But nobody comes out to do a damn thing about it. We put tape down to measure how fast they're going. That's all you guys have done. Took out my neighbor Manny's porch this year. How the guy didn't get hurt? Thank God he was high, I guess, because, you know, we all knew it, but he got to go home. Police did a sobriety test, didn't really do anything, had no license, no nothing. We just had one last weekend. Woman took the front axle, shoved it all the way up inside her brand new Honda Pilot. She got lucky because she must have been on the phone, because she was literally heading into the island and then veered off. Fortunately, she stopped short of Manny's sidewalk. I don't care what your report says. What you have to understand is, I knew the Risottos was when I was a little kid. I was babysat on Walnut Street when Bob and Bob had the corner store up there by Wawa. That's how long I've been around. Walnut Street has always been, and I own 2938, where my ex-wife lived. I've been around for a long time in this township. Walnut Street has always been a problem. Even when it was a gravel road, people were always speeding. It's not going to change. You can put all the islands you want in. All you've done is cause more problems. All right, the other month, you had a car actually go airborne. All right, fortunately, they didn't flip. They went into oncoming traffic and came back over. So, I mean, your reports for speed and all that, car usage, come on, let's be honest, COVID was in. There's not as much traffic, but you don't have any truck traffic information on there. And you really need to figure that out, because we have those, they cut right across to get to County Line Road. Most of them aren't going too fast, some of them are. You're gonna really take the traffic report to decide what to do to those islands, you didn't do it right. Sorry.
I see a couple questions. Your power got knocked out because the trailer hit your power line
They
vertically?
bounce, when they hit the island, they bounce up. So it's right where it's connected to the poles are across the street, and it catches them and looses them, rips them out.
Are you in favor of keeping them, or?
Oh, no, I want them gone, but I also want to see the police out there on a regular basis writing tickets, not just putting out the thing, slow down, it's 35. Go out there, write tickets one day during rush hour. You'll have it made. Pick a different day every week for a month, and you'll actually slow people down on that street. That's the only way it's going to work. Write a hell of a lot of tickets. I mean, come on, we all drive faster than 35. You know, how many people here actually drive 25 when it says 25? You're always doing 28, 32. You're not driving the speed limit. And those islands make people go out. We're lucky no one's been killed yet. I mean, we all were up one night because somebody was drunk, hit the island, hit another car head on. 2 o'clock in the morning, police are out there, fire department, everybody else. I mean, it's bad having the islands in there. I want to see them gone.
Thank you. Any other residents of East Walnut Street want to speak?
While this gentleman is walking up, I just want everyone to understand, and so that it's clear about this evening. Tonight is an opportunity to be heard. There's no action that's going to be taken this evening. So I don't want anyone who's sitting here or who eventually watches this to think that this is an action item for this evening. It absolutely is not. Given the conversations that Commissioner Lees has had and the concerns that were raised, we thought it made sense to bring it to a public forum. So that's what this evening is about. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Manny Figueredo, and I reside at 2942 East Walnut Street, right in between all of that, I call it a bump out, like part of the NASCAR course that you guys have created. And my wife and I have experienced that last horrific car accident. I do believe if that front deck in my house wasn't there, that car would have been in my house. 2 feet over from there, my gas main is sitting right there, and we may not be here to tell that story. You know what I mean? I am in favor to take it out. My wife is also in favor to take these out. Everything that Rich just stated is true. You know, we've had numerous accidents, and they should be reported on the police reports, as you probably seen them. And I don't want to see anything else happen to anybody's house or my house, especially mine, because every time somebody hits that curve, it always seems to attract my mailbox, my house. And I don't believe that's fair to me and or anybody else, you know. I'm in favor of removing these, you know. That's all I really have to say, you know. I don't want to see anything else. I would like to see slower traffic. Maybe there's signs and street lights and strips that on the street can be put in with them rumple things, you know. Something to slow them down, make you look like you need to slow down a little bit, you know. I get it. You know, everybody crosses from 309 to, County Line Road, you know, to Dorman. And the coronavirus thing, well, you know what that happened. That slowed everybody down, not the traffic that uses it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Frank Rizzo, 2954. Yeah, these obstructions have been, seen everything my neighbors have seen with the removing obstructions.
Thoughts on the speeding if they're removed? Do you think it would? Any thoughts on the speeding if those things are removed? Do you think the speeding would go up? Or I don't think. Oh,
I know when I was walking through, Deb,
yeah, I get that, yeah. No, I'm just wondering, I mean, now have accidents because of the islands. But what would taking them out to, and again, I'm just playing devil advocate, I'm not saying one way or the other how I feel about this. If they're out, wouldn't that increase the speed though, which is also one of your concerns? So so it's up for all of us to kind of weigh, you know what I'm saying, you kind of have to weigh all of that. Yeah.
Guys, if we're having a group discussion, do you mind going to the podium, or I can bring a microphone to you? 'Cause we just can't enter this into the minutes without it being on the microphone when we watch it. You may bring you a microphone? I don't want to make you guys go up there. Do you have one, Brian? Yeah. You mind turning that on? Just when we do the minutes, it's based on the video. So if you could just speak into the microphone, please.
Hi, Cara DiRienzo, 2943. Our house is actually in the front of the bump out that everybody hits. That bump out is the only bump out that gets hit. Bump out, they go into Manny's yard, or we had 2 cars that hit it, ended up in our. So. But it may, accidents will happen in front of that bump out.
Mary Rizzo. I just want to say that there wasn't that many accidents on the road before. These have created the accidents, and it's in danger. We wanted the less speed because we have kids. Or I have animals that I walk across the street, and one of the things that was told to us when we put in these by Mr. Brown is that there would be sidewalks. That was one of the commitments he made, and he fell short of that. So that was like a big deal to everyone there. We wanted it to be safe. We wanted to be able to walk to the park. And now it's just become accidents after accidents. It's more deadly for me trying to walk across the street to take the dogs. It's much worse, much worse. Obviously against.
As Jen said, the accidents get reported. But there has to have been at least 20 tires blown in the last 5 years. They don't get called in because those people just, change the tire, go, or have somebody come out and change it. So, I mean, yeah, there's going to be speeding. There always has been. I used to play on that street when it had gravel and oil. All right? It was always a speedway. Always has been, always will be. But again, then that falls on the police department to come out and do their job. And I know they do the job, but what I mean is come out and do their part and write the tickets. You have a major 4-lane highway, 309 North. That's a cut across for anybody that doesn't want to go up to 5 Points and turn left on 202. And anybody who's going to the factories that are over there. Number one, they're not going up and turning left to get off of 309 and make the right on county line. That's too tight of a turn. I drove tractor trailer for 35 years. It's a lot safer to go down on Walnut Street, turn left, go to county line, turn left or right. So, yeah, the speed will go up. But what do? We be proactive and tell the police you have to work that street once a week. Just write tickets all day. That's the only way to solve it.
Make those things where driving too fast, it lights up and tells you what speed you're going. Had them on the street once or twice, but I haven't seen them.
Sometimes. Or they like to see how fast they can get it to go up. Because I work in EMS, I see it. I'm on the street all day. So we see what the cars are doing. We know that they're not doing speed limits in any township, let alone this township. So in reality, right now they're speeding. They just shoot right down the middle between the islands. One of your neighbors sent us a video that Aaron and the chief and the other commissioners have looked at. So they're just going right down the middle of the road. They're straddling a double yellow and they're just flying down the road. You know, so I don't know that if you want a sign put up there to tell them how fast they're going, we could do that. I don't know that it's going to really modify the behavior, but we can do that if that's what you want.
So, the question, is the idea you want them all, was there 4 of them? Okay, so I've seen them, but you want all of them removed, not 2 on one side, but you like to see all 4 removed.
All of them, yeah. The traffic report said average speed is 44?
Not the average, 95th percentile.
All right, so the speed limit's 25. Anybody realize that?
Yeah.
And nobody has told the police, wait a minute, our traffic report says they're doing 20 miles an hour over. Let's start working this street. Whose job is that? Just out of curiosity, who makes that decision?
As far as the speed limit goes?
Well, if the speed limit's 25 and your traffic report says they're averaging 44, that's almost 20 miles an hour over. Who makes the decision after you did this traffic report to say, we got to do something about the speed? Even the heck with the idea of the islands right now.
Right.
I would say that, you know, as a 60-year-old man and been around forever, I'd look at that report and go, somebody better do something.
So I've already had a conversation with Chief Tierney, and I'll let him speak if he would like to. Our officers have been writing tickets out on that road. They write them all the time. Chief, do you want to address that?
Clearly, I know you know we can't be there all the time. And if I could, leading up to getting the islands, we sit out there for about 4 hours every day. We wrote between 60 and 80 tickets every day, which led us to the islands. Now the islands, I understand, are clearly a problem. When I look at the accident data, most of the accidents are caused from distracted driving. People texting, which back when the islands were put in, people weren't texting. My concern is people, without having the islands, now they hit the curb. Now they hit your house. In some cases that still happens, but when people aren't paying attention, they're veering off the road. They're going to hit something. The accidents aren't from speed. There's a few DUIs, but they're generally from distracted driving. I mean, that's a fact. I want to do everything I can for you, trust me, but it's a real balancing act here.
All right, there's also one other thing about those 3 islands that are near my house, because I'm at 2938, so I have one right here, one directly across, and one 2 houses down. Their island looks great on their side of the street because they plant flowers and everything else. Township put them in and just leaves them. Weeds grow mile high. You can't even see the guy on my driveway.
Well, I know Public Works is out there twice a year. They're out there in the spring and they're out there in the fall to maintain them. I don't know that the maintenance has been done this year because we were talking about taking them out, and then at the last minute we decided that we were going to keep them and we were going to make them more visible.
But twice a year doesn't keep the stuff down.
I understand.
And in order to have a driveway, you have to have 50 foot on either side in order to pull out before you can put a driveway into a house. So with that island there, which is only 7 foot from my driveway, and you let the weeds grow up above 3 foot, that's not my island. So when I get hit, fortunately I haven't yet, then I have to come after the township because they put the island in, they're maintaining it. Sorry to sound that way, but I'm just saying.
No, I understand what you're saying.
And I understand the right-of-way distance because my wife works for Montgomery County Permits Department for putting in driveways and working on roads.
Right.
All right, so I mean, you put them in, it was great. I understand. Like I said, I've been here forever. All right, so I understand why you put them in, but they're not doing its purpose anymore if they're averaging 44 miles an hour. Doesn't matter why the accidents happen, they're still doing 44 miles an hour. And with all the accidents and all the blown tires and all the sleepless nights we get when people hit you can hear them hit it. You can have the TV on, the windows closed in the dead of winter. You know when somebody hit that island. And all they did was blow out their tire. They didn't have to hit anything, but we know it.
Sir, just to jump in, we understand your position is you want them removed, correct? Okay, could we allow other people to speak and then allow the commissioners to speak just to continue the conversation? We have a hefty agenda items tonight. that we
Okay,
need to
so
get
we
to.
all know that these things will and sometime will be removed. Do we know when?
We don't know that, sir. I mean, this is a public discussion.
I know when this came up before, it would be sometime in the early spring or early summer. And then somebody came along and said, well, you know, I'm not part of that street here, but, you know, I'm allowed to vote in a traffic study. Well, then people don't live on that street. You follow?
Completely, I understand. So
Okay.
the decision has to be made by the board.
All
of
right, so we
Commissioners.
removed the islands. So what do we do about slowing the traffic down from Dorman to Wawa or from Wawa to Dorman? That needs to be addressed. Just don't put lines down the center and say, have at it.
Well, our traffic engineer, Anton, has already talked about how to try and cone that down by lining the road and narrowing that visually, not physically, to help try and slow it down. Anton, could you speak for me?
As Anton's going up there, just keep in mind, though, there's no perfect solution here. I mean, keep in mind, this is a straight corridor that
Yeah.
runs right through the area, and when we have streets like that throughout the township, there's problems with speeding, and it's very hard to keep up with.
You know what did work was the day that bridge was closed for
I know
about
that.
4 or
That's
5
the
months.
best year of your life. I know that. I remember.
Although I think a couple people crashed into the bridge barrier, so it didn't solve everything, but yeah, it did work.
Yeah, and if you go back to before the traffic islands were put in, the double yellow was centered on the road, so you had wider lanes down Walnut Street, and with the islands going in, the lanes were narrowed and the parking was added on the one side of the street. So that could be maintained. That helps, like you're talking about, keeping that narrow feature, hopefully slowing down. But as Aaron mentioned, there's they call it the traffic calming toolbox. There's different things you can do. You can put in rumble strips like you had mentioned with thermoplastic paint, but they're noisy. You know, you're going to hear them throughout the night. You know, so that's, like Aaron said, there's gives and takes of what you want to do. The speed humps were talked about originally, but it was something that the fire departments don't like to see out there. Maybe that could be something that's revisited. But as Aaron said, you got a straight corridor here. You mentioned that everybody wants to get the cow path, the county line, and it's a good cut through there. So if it's removed, I would just keep the lanes narrowed as they are. They're 11-foot lanes. I wouldn't go any narrower than that. Keep the parking on the one side of the street, if that's what the residents want to keep.
Does anybody have any questions for the traffic engineer?
As an aside, I'll tell you that even though it's not on point directly, Anton is our traffic engineer. He literally is our magic man. He has been personally responsible for, I think, probably a few $1 million or more of grants that we have received that have alleviated traffic and other engineering concerns throughout the township. So we're not just appreciative of what he's done for us, but he's a real expert. So now's a real opportunity, if you have questions for him, to ask.
So how can we raise the islands? If they don't take them out, how about if we put them up to where people have to see the damn things? Anything. I mean, right now, those so low, yeah, distracted driving, understand, but you know what? We had a mother one night shove her axles all the way into the back of her car because the baby was crying. She wasn't on the phone. She just happened to look up in the mirror and caught the islands. Can we make them higher? Guardrails are ugly, by the way, in my neighborhood because they're all rusted, but I mean, actually make a wall with them or something. Is there something we can do?
Even we can put a wall in the road, like the single face barrier, like you see down 309, the center of 309 when you go up towards past Souderton. That's something I wouldn't recommend.
No, I meant with the islands themselves instead of the curves being so low.
Right. I'm saying like if you had like that kind of that wall, that single face barrier, I wouldn't recommend doing something like that there. That you got to protect, you know, for the vehicles. had looked at previously after the first town hall meeting, making them more visible, more reflective things on the islands to make them more visible. That's something we could go back to. I guess one simple thing, I think somebody mentioned which islands to remove. Maybe you just remove the one island, Aaron, if you go back to the, remove the one island and just make it straight for right now. And that seems to be the one that is hit the most. I think that's what was mentioned. Maybe we start with the one island, just make it straight there, and we look at doing the other signing out there. Different options you can consider. But I don't think you can make that curbs higher.
Were you involved with the design of this?
Yeah, different, and the selection and the going through different,
This is the second design, correct? Because the first design was too expensive.
I can't remember.
Yeah, it was. It was like $250,000 or something like that to
Right,
put in the calming effect. So the township decided to go with the cheaper route.
Or if I could about the speed limits too, when we were historically writing a lot of tickets there, is when the speed limit was actually higher on the road. The speed limit generally is based on the 85th percentile speed that Aaron showed up there. Road just be posted higher. We were writing speeds of well over 60 on that road consistently. Now are actually well down. Again, I'm not coming down on either way. I'm just giving you the factual information that I have, having been here. The speeds are well below what they used to be. If the speed limit was at the 85th percentile, nobody would be speeding. Legally, no one would be speeding at all.
Yes, sir. You have the mic. You have the microphone.
It's all right. I'm just throwing it out at you. No problem.
Mike Dorenzo, 2943 East Walnut Street. Can you back? Right there. No, actually, keep going.
Yep.
Right there.
Okay.
Hold on. Now, before the bump outs, I'm not sure if everybody remembers, but this is how it was. This had the lane here, and then it was this lane, and then you could park on that side. Anybody remember that?
Park on
Okay.
the right-hand side?
Yep. This is, hold on, this is how it was when I first moved in.
Okay. Oh.
Okay? You could park on that side. This side was as close as it was right there. This is why I extended my driveway, because I have a car hobby. Thing is somebody changed it to the middle. Do you remember that? They changed the yellow double to the middle? Nobody? Yes? Okay. And anyway, they were parking on both sides of the road, but then you were going like this. So what's going to happen if you take them out? Are you going to go back to the middle, which was even more confusing, or are you going to keep it to the way that it was?
I would recommend almost keeping it how it is with the lane over
Okay,
here,
no,
the
that's
lane
fine.
there, and the parking over there.
And I have different thoughts of, I mean, I understand everybody's had problems, but that's the one that mainly gets hit, and that's mine. I enjoy it. I like hearing the noises. But like I said, a guardrail or a big boulder up there, that might help them see it. But
Yeah, I gotcha.
Bill?
Just a quick comment. Bill Brusky, 2946. I live right where the S curve is. It's right in front of my house. The one positive I saw with it on the parking side, the upper side, was that before those islands were there, cars used to get hit when they were parked because I had a mirror ripped off my car one time. So I did like the definite on the upper side, that parking lane there, even though I can't park there now because there's an island there. But other people can park there on that side and their cars didn't get hit like they were before. So anyways, that's my only comment. So whether you take out the one that's causing all problems and leave the others, but, you know, anyways.
All the residents of East Walnut Street got a chance to speak that want to speak.
One other, we're talking about removing one, I'm for all removed. There's another question I have about West Walnut. Is there a no turn on red coming from west to east, crossing 309? Because that's been a problem also. I have to.
Coming out of Walnut to make a right turn onto South 309, is that what you mean?
Going, no, going towards East Walnut Street from west. West of 309.
Okay.
And can I make a right-hand turn when it's red? Because we have the green arrow. I might just be seeing a lot of people making a right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to go look at what's.
That's been a big
out there.
problem, and there's been accidents there because of that, and I cut off maybe twice a week.
Anybody else from East Walnut? Anybody else besides the East Walnut residents that, well, when you're done, sir, or whatever. Mr. Brown, did you want to say something, sir?
Commissioner Brown, thank you for coming out.
Yes, thank you for coming, sir.
Good evening, Scott Brown. I live at 2177 Rebecca Drive. I do not live on Walnut Street, as you pointed out, but I am concerned, as every Hatfield resident should be, about how our tax dollars are spent and how our resources are spread out. So I'm concerned about that, and I'm also concerned about safety. I forwarded 3 documents to the commissioners through the manager that you should have in front of you from 2005 when this project was completed that documents some of the things that happened back then. It's important to look back and see how things evolved. We didn't have, our current manager was not manager then. Our current chief of police was not chief of police then. Only one commissioner was present at the time, and that's Commissioner Andrus. Your name is on the letterheads here.
Might have been that traffic study, but I was not on the board when that was voted to be put in.
I will stand corrected. So no commissioner has the background about this. So I forwarded from the police chief at the time, forwarded a document to the township manager along with some data, and in a cover letter transmitted those documents to me. Just a little background. The speeding on Walnut Street, when I first became commissioner, generated crowds bigger than this that came to the meeting and said, "Commissioners, you've got to do something about speeding on Walnut Street. It's just not safe." In fact, we had cars there that have exceeded 70 miles an hour. We have 18-wheelers on there. And we had one resident would come occasionally and who had spent the morning counting 18-wheelers and come and report to the board the number of 18-wheelers. So what do? As many of you suggested, you call in the police. You call in the police. And I have a study, and the board should have this in front of them, of what the police did during that period. This is a period of a year. And I'm going to try to be succinct. But they wrote 363 citations. 363 citations on Walnut Street. That's documented here, and every board member has this in front of them. They would have 1 or 2 officers in driveways, somebody down at the Boy Scout cabin waving them into the parking lot, and somebody in the parking lot writing them up. So what happened? We had, sometimes they'd spend as much as 2 hours and some 15 minutes. This is basically for the board to see the resources that we put on Walnut Street from the police. Exceptional. And guess what happened? The room is full again. And they said, you might have the police there, but when they go home, they're speeding. They're not there all the time. We need something that's permanent. And so this is what we have. We know for certain that it reduced traffic. This traffic study doesn't do that. What it did is take down the highest speeds. The top quartile was dropped. So you can't imagine somebody going there 75 around there right now. Couldn't happen. But, okay, that did happen. They do 75. I don't, you have lines and you've timed them. So, no, sir, just with all due respect, I spent a lot of respectful time with,
Sir, he has the floor.
Yep.
Please be respectful.
Yeah, one at a time. One of the things that we do when there's any citizens' comments is we always do one at a time, and this is time for comment, and then if you have a concern or you want to respond, then it's your turn afterwards or at some point later in the evening. But definitely one at a time. So thanks, everybody.
thank you. So the commissioners have the detail of the number of selective enforcement, 144 selective enforcements, 29 were done on weekends. It's all pretty well detailed here, and you gentlemen have this, right?
You.
And then we have the accident report. And if you look at the very last line has East Walnut Street, and you can compare it with just about every other street. There were 4 reportable collisions and 12 non-reportable collisions during this period. As someone referenced, most of the non-reportable collisions, we sideswiped parked cars. Knocked a mirror off, sideswiped parked cars, mostly hit and run. And also in here, you'll see the number of selective enforcements and citations that were written. I just would hate to think as a taxpayer that we would take this traffic calming out, send the police down there, and people still aren't happy, and somehow we'd have to spend more resources to put something else in. This project was over $100,000. And you ask about a more extensive project, somebody referenced that. The dream was to put sidewalks in along with it. And when budget time came, and this became a budget item, the cost was prohibitive. So we ended up with something that I believe reduces the number of accidents, has slowed traffic, and nobody's talking about counting the 18-wheelers anymore. Most of them, many 18-wheelers have been diverted to other roads. So whatever the board does, I will respect. I know that what's happened on Walnut Street, the speeding is an issue, has been an issue, but I'm not sure that police enforcement, to be quite frank, 363 citations, we do more than that. 363 citations, and that didn't do the job. So I think when we make a vote on this, that needs to be considered because just because I don't think it's the right thing to do. So I thank you for your attention. I respect everybody's opinion on Walnut Street, and I am committed to the best that we can do here in Hatfield Township. I respect the board and the police, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown.
How it looks here? That's what it looks like right now. In front of my house, and I didn't realize one of my best friends, Mike, retired. Mike Hallmeyer moved to Florida. When I called him, I have a manhole access, which is that deep now. It's getting deeper and deeper. You see, goes back to the traffic report. Nobody's counting tractor trailers. Oh, they go down our street. And we also have the dump trucks with the trailers that come down our street. Now, my question is, the islands are there. We don't want to take out the islands. Fix the road too then, because the road's giving out. All right, so maybe you need to go out and look at it anyhow, not just a traffic report. Send somebody out, look at the islands, look at the road, figure out what's going on. Some of the road is this way, some of it's that way. It's no longer high ground around this area like it used to be. I mean, you go down County Line Road, you'd be in a ditch when we were kids. Same thing with Walnut Street. All right, so I mean, there's tons of tractor trailer traffic. Maybe I guess we need to wait for another traffic survey done and you actually count it out. All right, that's all I can say. I mean,
if I can, sir, John Wolf, the Director of Public Works, and I talked about this. And we were going to repave that road after we did what we were going to do with the islands, whether we were going to make them more visible or if we were going to remove them, right? So right now, because we're in November, my understanding is a lot of the blacktop plants
Yeah,
are
they're
closing
done.
down. They're done. So we can't do anything until spring anyway at this point. But we were talking about planning on doing whatever we're going to do, whether we're going to make the islands more visible or we're going to remove them, do that and repave the road. It's supposed to be done this coming summer is when that road is scheduled to be done. We wanted to get all this done before we repave because it wasn't going to make sense to
No, it doesn't
pave the
make sense to
road and then
pave and
rip
then
out
tear
the
'em out.
islands, and then we got to tamp that all back down again. So that was something that was discussed, but because things have been going back and forth, the reason those islands are not more visible now is because Manny and you and some of your other neighbors have insisted that we remove those islands, and I wanted to make a decision before we spent taxpayer money to make them more visible than just to rip them out. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
So that's the thought process behind it. But once, everybody gets a chance to be heard and we make a decision what we're doing, you should see everything done, hopefully this summer, everything will be getting done.
Yeah, see, unfortunately, there's only 3 islands to worry about. There's only one that's a problem. That's the one that's in front of my neighbor's house over here that actually keeps it nice and pretty, trims it, makes it nice. That one's the biggest problem we have. I mean, they go around the other ones that are on our side of the street, and that's why they're over the yellow line. But what I was saying, it had nothing to do with the islands. Have somebody talk to the guys that have to do the things with the storm drains and all, walk out, because it is dropped, and it drops every time the trucks go over it, it bounces. So I think the pipe might be dropping all the way down.
Okay, I'll have them look at it. Thank you.
Okay. It was a good conversation. Lots to think about, a lot of recommendations and opinions. Of course, this is, like I said, this is not an action item for this evening, but we wanted to make it a public meeting so that, not only can residents respond, but also commissioners as a whole can hear it. So we don't get a lot of people, participation at some of our meetings, so I'm not just saying that. That's not just words. We really appreciate your coming out and letting us know your concerns. We wish people came out more often. What's that? I can't tell you, because honestly, this is something that for some of us are hearing, not for the first time, because, for example, I've been on the board for a while now, but the installation of that predates me, and quite frankly, I've not known that the concern was this considerable as it relates to the people whose houses are right around these. So tonight is really important for us to know. It won't be this year because we have tonight's agenda, and then we have one meeting in December where we're going to pass our budget. We're going to hear about our budget for next year just briefly. So it won't happen this year, but I expect that what we're going to do is your commissioner, whose ward it is probably going to do what we often do. He'll reach out, he'll speak to each of us, he'll get different opinions, different thoughts, and then we put together a plan with the assistance of the staff and our expert. And so a time frame, I don't want to give you a time frame and not meet it, but I would think that over the next couple of months, it'll certainly be on the top of our list to discuss amongst the commissioners.
As I said, we can't do anything until the blacktop plants open back up in the spring anyway, at this point, okay? But I also want to make it clear, because Commissioner Brown and I have had several discussions about this. If we remove those islands and the speeding goes back up, we do not have the police resources to put police cars sitting on that street 24/7, 365. They're chief ballpark. How many calls do you guys answer in a year? 30,000+ calls a year. And how many cars do we usually have on the street? There's usually 5 cars on the street. So do the math, 30,000 divided by 5, divided by 24 hours. You'll see that we just don't have the resources to put cars there all the time to write tickets. So if we take these islands out, and I agree that they're a safety hazard, and I understand Manny's point and this other gentleman's point about them hitting the houses and everything else, that's a concern. Just understand that if we take these out, the speeding is probably going to go back up, and we don't have the resources to have police sitting there all the time to ticket them. So just be aware of that when we make, when you're making your decision on what you want to do. All right? So just so everybody's aware.
Folks, if I could, and some of you were at the meeting that I was at before, never hesitate to call us. Pictures of cars, if you see a particular violator that's happening every day at the same time, that's certainly something that we can focus on. If, whatever, a red Corvette, black Mustang, whatever, comes by at 3 o'clock every day, there are things we can do. And generally, motorists follow other motorists. If one car's speeding, the people behind them are speeding. If we can catch the one, we're going to slow others down. we can't be there all the time, but I don't want you to feel like there's nothing that can be done, because there are many things that can be done, and we'll do everything that we can, but we need your help to get there.
I would just add that any discussion on this topic will be at a public meeting and not held behind closed doors. So thank you for your participation. The first step in solving any problem is to understand it and have a constructive conversation. I think we did that tonight. And when the board feels it's appropriate, we'll schedule another meeting to have this discussion and any action at a public meeting.
You'll be notified. Well, whether it's through mail or through Commissioner Lee's or just some other form of notification. We know this is an important issue. One of the things that we work on all the time is to make sure that we communicate as best as we possibly can. One of the things that we never want people to think is that decisions are made without their being told or without their knowledge, or that someone comes in and says, the behind closed doors notion. We don't do that. We never would, and so you'll receive notification for sure.
You guys received the letter for tonight? Tonight? We'll do the same thing as we did for this meeting. We'll send you a letter.
Yes, sir.
One more.
Yep.
When you guys reevaluate the road there where you're going to pave it and everything, I'm the one with the bump out that always gets hit or whatever. Like I said, I'm fine with it, but the curb is now all warped and my walkway is up and down and it's all cracked from the drainage of it. So if you could check that out when you do that.
All right, I'll have the Public Works guys look at it.
And over the next week or so, you will see an increased police presence out there. We will get on it all the time. We can't be there every day of every week, but you will see a presence out there, I guarantee you.
One thing to point out too, we do not issue tickets as a source of revenue. So I know that's some people believe that, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
Each ticket generates about $2 to the township, so. Yeah. Okay. 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 Sir, we just need you on a microphone, please. I'm sorry.
44 miles an hour, average is 19 miles an hour over the speed limit. 17 miles an hour over the speed limit, you get 3 points and have to take a driving test over in order to keep your license. And your insurance rates just went up about $3,000 a year. So whether you make money or not, tickets are going to change different than they did 2005.
You understand that if you have one car stop, 20 more are passing while you're writing the ticket that are speeding. It's not a be-all, end-all.
Write all three up at once, not just the front car.
We can't. We can only time one car at a time. But push for radar.
I'll buy a radar gun, take pictures for you. And
I
you
wish
can
we
do
could
what
use
you do.
radar.
All right.
Radar would be the answer.
But thank you. Oh.
So in your next budget, will this budget include Walnut Street?
Within our budget, we have a significant amount of money for road improvements.
But
With
what
some-
about the future safety of Walnut Street? We get rid of the bump outs. What are we doing about the future safety?
That's why we're having the conversation tonight. And that's what Commissioner Lees is telling you.
Gotcha.
If those bump outs go, we've got to figure out, one of the things that we're going to need to figure out is what other speed reduction efforts we can make. And what Mr. Bebro was just about to tell you is that we have money allocated for road improvements, so we would have the resources within reason, I should say, to determine what those alternatives would be. And so I don't think anyone here, I'd be surprised, I don't think anyone here is saying, yeah, let's just take out the bump outs and whatever happens, happens. That's not the plan. The plan, I'm sure, from what I can tell from my colleagues here, is that the first question is whether would the bump outs stay. And if they stay, how do we make them more visible? And if they don't, then what speed reduction efforts are going to be the alternative? I don't have an answer for you tonight. That's what tonight is about. Or that's the beginning of the conversation to figure out what that's about or what that will look like. All right. Thank you very much, folks. We really appreciate it. We're going to move on with Commissioner Lees. Do you have anything else under Public Works?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, we're going to move on to Planning and Zoning Committee, Vice President Rogers.
Thank you very much. The first item is the Sterling Business Center, Lot A1, Lot 1A and B, 1B division discussion. Ken, you have that?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Rogers. The aerial that you see on the screen shows the approximate location. This is land which was purchased by Knappen and Associates several years ago. It is the final phase of the Line Lexington Industrial Park, and it is right at the intersection of Sterling Drive and Route 309. When it was originally purchased, it consisted of three lots, actually. Lot 2B here, Lot 2A over here, and Lot 1. Earlier this year, Lot 1 was subdivided into 2 lots, and there is now Lot 1A and Lot 1B. And the building on Lot 2B has been constructed and is just about ready to occupy at this point. The subdivision of Lot A was approved and was recorded, and subsequent to that, 2 land development applications were filed, one for Lot A and one for Lot 1B. Lot 1A is proposed to have a building of 90,000 square feet on approximately 12.3 acres, and this is the rendering of the landscape plan. Sterling Drive is over here. Route 309 is along the bottom of the screen. This is the proposed building, parking area in the front, loading area to the rear, stormwater facilities to the rear, which are used in, or which will be developed in conjunction with the stormwater facilities on Lot 2B, or Lot 1B in the back. This is Lot 1B. Again, parking area in the front, loading area to the rear, stormwater management area to the back, landscaping throughout the parking area. There will be sidewalks along Route 309, and there will be sidewalks on both sides of Sterling Drive when the project is complete. Both of these projects have run through the process simultaneously. They have all been reviewed by Township staff and consultants. They've been reviewed by the Township Planning Commission and by the Montgomery County Planning Commission and by the Planning and Zoning Committee of the board. And all of those various groups and agencies have recommended approval of the plan. The resolutions have been prepared by the solicitor's office, were distributed to the applicant earlier this week, and have been received by us, signed by Knappen and Associates. So both projects are ready for approval by the Board of Commissioners. Mr. Knappen is here along with his attorney, Zach Siverson, and his engineer, Rick Stoneback. I'm sure any one of them would be happy to answer any questions the board might have relative to either project.
Start with a simple question. Do you have I know that that's the proposal, do you have any expectation or you have plans, you know what's going to be in those buildings?
Alan, could you just go to the microphone, Alan? I'm sorry.
Build every building on spec, so I don't have a specific tenant or user in mind that's going in those buildings, but it will be a user that is allowed under your ordinance.
That was going to be my next question is, if you build it on spec, then how do you handle, something that's outside of the ordinance, but obviously the intent is to keep it inside the ordinance?
Correct.
And what's the timing sequence on all this that you prognosticate anyway?
Well, right now we have the one building 50% leased. I would say we'd like to get it 100% leased before we start the next building. We do have approvals for the lot over here as well, but we're just working out some final engineering issues regarding that site. So it could be actually any one of those 3 buildings that, assuming you have approved these 2 tonight, it could be any one of those 3 will be the next, and it could be next year.
Sometime in 2022.
2022, correct.
And you said one of the buildings is 50% leased already?
Yeah, the large building that everyone thinks is
in
for
two.
Amazon.
Yeah. Everyone
it's-
thinks it's Amazon.
It's 50% leased, 2 tenants are taking each 1/4 of the building.
Okay.
Are there any shared parking lots or anything like that?
No,
No, it's completely divided. And I would venture to say that because they were split, you probably have less square footage of warehouse because you all the buffers and
well,
stuff like that.
I can tell you, for the 2 tenants that are taking the space in the 1900 building, one tenant has roughly 7,000 square feet in a 53,000 square foot section. The other tenant is going to roughly have about 10% of their 53,000 square foot section of office.
Yeah, no, my question was about A and B, that once you divided it, that made the less of an opportunity for the size of the building?
I'm sorry.
The buildings are much smaller, or would be smaller than what, if you kept it one solid lot?
No, it's probably about similar. The reason why we subdivided it into 2 lots was because of the grade change. It wasn't feasible to put one large building on lot 1.
Impervious cover-wise, looks like you're covering an awful lot of open space. Are we meeting the requirements for impervious cover, Ken?
Yes, all 4 lots meet the impervious cover requirement. The impervious cover requirement in this district is 75%, and they are well under 75%.
Aaron, can you go back to the, yeah. So you got a pretty big buffer all around. Everything around you is commercial, correct?
Everything is industrial.
Industrial, sorry. And the access, obviously the primary access point is going to be Sterling. Is there,
The only access point will be Sterling.
oh, well, you got me to my next question, which was going to be, is that going to be the only access point? Okay.
The only building that takes access directly to Route 309 will be the building on Lot 2A, which was previously approved, and that will come directly out to 309.
Everything else goes to Sterling only, not to Bethlehem Pike?
Correct. Goes to Sterling, and then we have the light at Sterling.
Right, right. All right, so any other questions or comments from commissioners, residents?
Commissioner, just one other comment that the public might be interested in. One public improvement associated with this land development will be sidewalks all along Sterling Drive. So the future employees that will be working in this site and throughout the office park will now have the ability to connect down into our trail system, Frick's Trail, but then also the ability to walk up to 309, which will be a continual effort to make pedestrian connections there. But this will be a nice opportunity to fill a pretty significant gap where you can't walk safely.
Okay. If there's no other questions or comments, then I'll just I'll just, by consensus, is this something where everyone's okay to move to the next meeting? Deb, do you have a question?
We have a motion.
That motion
A little bit
prepared for this
further down,
evening?
yeah.
It is.
So,
You're right.
Mr. President, since we have one meeting this month, the
Oh, yeah,
agenda was
that's
set
right.
up as a
That's right.
discussion and then
Yep.
an action. It would make sense to take the action now rather than waiting through the agenda.
Rather than go through the whole agenda. That makes sense. I forgot, because normally we have 2 meetings a month, and then it's a 2-step process. Old habit. So, all right, so why don't we do that? Because we're looking at then resolutions 21-29 and 21-30, right?
Right, correct.
Okay. All right, is there a motion with regard to resolution 21-29 for approval of the Sterling Business Center, Lot 1A?
So moved.
Motion by Vice President, I almost said Hughes, I'm sorry. Old habits. Vice President Rogers, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lees. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of Resolution 21-29, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Next, Resolution 21-30, is there a motion for approval with regard to the Sterling Business Center, Lot 1B? Motion by Commissioner Andrus, second by Commissioner Zimmerman. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of Resolution 21-30, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Gentlemen, thank you for coming out.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the second item is the Wawa Broad Street, Broad and Cow Path. Amended final approval discussion.
Yes, thanks, Commissioner Rogers. This one's going to feel like deja vu all over again. This is the corner of North Broad Street and Cowpath Road. There's a vacant gas station sitting at the corner right now. There was a previous approval just over a year ago, I believe it was October 28th of last year, for a Wawa to be located at that corner. Part of that approval was for certain improvements along North Broad Street that were recommended by our traffic engineer. However, once the PennDOT application was filed and PennDOT did their review, PennDOT would not allow the improvements that we wanted to do. The applicant had agreed to fund all of those improvements, had agreed to pay for all of that funding, which was well in excess of the traffic impact fee that would normally be due for the project. However, when PennDOT decided that they would not let us do those improvements, then we had to come up with another way to get some improvement at the intersection. And what the applicant had proposed was to pay the traffic impact fee for the entire project, which amounts to $166,000, and then pay the balance of what would have been required to do the originally contemplated improvements, which would be another $83,000, to pay that to the township. And the only obligation they asked the township to live by would be to make an application to PennDOT to do certain improvements along the grade crossing at the SEPTA line. Those improvements would benefit the entire intersection, would benefit this particular property, and the township felt that was a reasonable, at least staff and professional consultants felt that was a reasonable way to handle this. That way the entire contribution would still be made to the township. The $166,000 traffic impact fee would be paid, and then the additional $83,000 would be used for for matching funds for any grant that could be obtained by the township to do work at that SEPTA intersection, which would benefit the intersection at Broad and Cowpath, which is one of our more problematic intersections. So the only thing that has changed from your resolution that you passed on October 28th of last year is the structure of that contribution. Everything else remains exactly as it was. All of the waivers, all of the other obligations of the developer remain exactly as is. So at the end of the day, the township will still get the same benefit from the developer. It will just be applied in a slightly different way. And that resolution is before you this evening. It's been signed by the applicant, and it is ready for the board to consider. Mr. Coles is here for the applicant. If there are any questions, he represents the developer on this particular project.
Ken, I have a question.
Yes.
It's not concerning this part, but I had a resident approach me and questioned whether we gave a variance on the height of the signage for the Wawa. The height, is that within our ordinance? Or did we give a variance for?
The zoning hearing board gave a variance for the height of the sign at the Wawa, yes.
Okay.
There were two signs proposed for the Wawa, one on each frontage. The one on the Broad Street frontage was not given a variance.
Okay.
The one on the Cowpath Road frontage was given a variance.
Okay.
And that was to be consistent with other relief that had been granted in that particular area.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And largely, the difference in this plan and the previous one is right-hand turn lane coming off of Broad onto Cowpath heading north, right?
Yeah, heading out toward 309, there was a right-hand turn lane with a sheltered turn lane off of Broad Street.
That's what PennDOT didn't like.
PennDOT did not like that. They felt that it interfered with the queue of the the north and south get confusing at this intersection, but it would be the southbound side of Broad Street.
And what's that other figure up there, the rectangle next to the Wawa? What's that?
Other rectangle, I think.
Right there where the cursor is, yeah.
Pumps.
That's the pump island.
Okay, forgot about that. Okay, thanks.
One is the building, the other's the pump island.
Commissioner Andrews, you had brought up a year ago during the approval some of your frustrations with how the train is coordinated with Broad and Cowpath, with the contribution for this project. And now, since the improvements aren't going in, and with the grant that Anton will be applying for, that's what we have in mind to try to improve based on your feedback. Sure.
All right. Any other questions or comments from commissioners or residents? Yes.
Carla DeLessio, 2169 Stewart Drive. Ken, I'm just trying to understand, so the changes that we looked at and reviewed, PennDOT is not approving.
Correct.
So if the resolution is passed tonight, none of those changes would take effect, but there'd be a traffic assessment amount of money that we would then consider what traffic improvements can be made there to make flow. I'm just trying to understand, since PennDOT didn't approve it, are they saying the way it is acceptable without these modifications?
Well, PennDOT did not approve the modifications that our traffic engineer recommended. PennDOT felt that they would not be safe and they couldn't be implemented safely along the North Broad Street corridor. But as an alternative, what we'd be doing, we would be applying for a grant for improvements along the Cowpath corridor in the area of the tracks. So we would still be getting improvements at the intersection, we just wouldn't be getting the specific improvements that our traffic engineer was looking for initially.
On Broad Street?
On Broad Street, correct.
Okay, so and we're comfortable with that from a safety perspective, that, you know, planning and zone. Maybe another question, did the Planning Commission then re-review this and say, okay, the changes that we all thought we were going to get to improve traffic flow were not improved by PennDOT, and therefore we're still going to go ahead and keep the status quo?
It did not go back to the Planning Commission. This kind of a change would typically not go back to the Planning Commission.
And if I'm understanding the resolution, if you approve it tonight, then this developer has the go-ahead to move forward with their project without some of the traffic safety suggestions that our engineer suggested.
Without the improvements that our engineer was suggesting along North Broad Street. But understand, PennDOT is the ultimate arbiter here. PennDOT has the final say.
Right. So I guess I'm saying, that's what I'm trying to get at. If PennDOT is saying, no, these suggestions don't address safety, but what they're being silent on is there may be other changes that you need. What I'm trying to understand is, did they say that building it the way it is fine? Am I, because...
Yes.
Joe Cools on behalf of the applicant. Pleasure to see you all. I think this answers your question. First thing is the plan, and it becomes a little complicated, but the plan actually hasn't changed. The plan that the Planning Commission saw and that recommended approval, and the plan that the Board of Commissioners last saw a little over a year ago and approved, showed the intersection as it's now going to be built. It was only after all that was done that the applicant attempted to accommodate the Township traffic engineer's desire to see an additional improvement along Broad that Ken just described to you. There's a $168,000 traffic impact fee applicable to this project. The applicant was always going to pay that. But at the nth hour, when this additional improvement was discussed, we all understood that the additional improvement was going to cost $250,000. So the applicant said, if we could be allowed a credit on the traffic impact fee, we'll pick up the difference and we'll do the entire improvement, and we'll pay $250,000. So what happened a little over a year ago is that this plan was approved, but it was approved pursuant to a resolution that recited a contribution scheme as follows. $168,000 traffic impact fee will be waived, and instead the applicant will construct a improvement that costs $250,000. After that was done, we found that PennDOT would not permit that improvement. So the applicant said, okay, fine. We had sort of come to terms with the fact that we were spending $250,000 anyway. So let's just go back to the $168,000 traffic impact fee, which will give the township, and we'll keep the other, what is it, $83,000 on the table to make up the difference for $250,000. And all we ask is that you use that $83,000 perhaps as a match to do some crossing improvements. And if you can't get that grant at the end of a 2-year period, well, then you can do whatever you want with the $83,000 on traffic improvements in the vicinity of this property. And you always have the $168,000 in traffic impact fee that you can use pursuant to the ordinance to construct any improvement within the township that is within your capital improvements plan. So the intersection was always deemed safe. It was reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission. It was always deemed safe as is and approved by the Board of Commissioners. It was just that last minute attempt to do a little something extra that McMahon and Associates wanted that caused the applicant to offer another $80,000 above and beyond the traffic impact fee. And what you're doing tonight is only curing that defect in the contribution recital in paragraph 8 that was done a year ago. The plan's staying the same. Hope that helps.
So I guess the question is, this is approved by PennDOT?
Well, it's not approved by PennDOT yet because we haven't got an HOP permit in hand. But the way this process works is you make a number of submittals and there are a number of responses. And PennDOT has said, we are going to approve this. We will not approve what
we thought about before.
Right,
Yeah.
what McMahon and Associates wanted, because we don't believe that that is acceptable to
Correct.
us.
Bob, your question answered it. PennDOT will approve it without the enhancements that we wanted, that they deem unsafe
Well, and
or unnecessary.
That's correct, Arda, and it's because of PennDOT that it's now what you see.
Right. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, well then, since that is, it was just a part of our discussion, why don't I take what I think is Resolution 21-31. Yep, just that one. Is there a motion for approval with regard to Resolution 21-31 for the Wawa Broad and Cowpath amended final approval?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus.
Second.
Second by Vice President Rogers. Questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of Resolution 21-31, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved.
One last quick item.
Yes.
The residents of Ward 2 and Ward 3 that are around Vine Street, Maple Avenue, Hedgewood, Hawthorne, School Road, want to thank previous Commissioner Larry Hughes for the job that his local did over on that building, the house there on Vine Street. Fantastic job. It already looks like it's a little park. Couldn't ask for anything more, so really appreciate all that he has done in our community.
Great, thank you, Larry.
More on that later, Vice President.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next is Parks and Recreation Committee, Commissioner Zimmerman.
So for November, we have a Storytime series, and the featured book is Splat the Cat and the Pumpkin Picking Plan by Rob Scotton. Registration $5, includes the book and activity kit. You can read the stories and complete the activity kit individually or do it as a family activity. Pick up your books and activity kits between November 8th and the 19th. Email pictures of the family reading and complete activities to storybook@hatfield.org by November 23rd to be included in our November Storytime series post. Some December holiday events that we're going to be doing is our Hatfield Giving Tree. It went up this week. You can see it out there. Gift tags are on the tree, and they're labeled with an age, gender, and a gift request from a local child. So just grab a tag and replace it with the corresponding gift to be donated to a local family. All gifts should be new and unwrapped, and gifts dropped off from now until through December 17th. Virtual gingerbread house contest again. Register online, build your gingerbread masterpiece at home, and you could win a $50 Amazon gift card. Email your finished creations to gingerbread@hatfield.org. After the judges vote, the winners will be announced on the Township Facebook page. Register and submit photos by December 15th. We're also going to have holiday shops. Get your last-minute holiday shopping in. Enjoy a cup of hot cocoa and other holiday treats as you browse unique gifts and crafts. And that is Wednesday, December 15th from 6 to 8 here in the administration. We're going to do the lights competition again. That went over really well last year. I helped to judge that. That was a lot of fun. So if you decorate your home every year for the holidays, join us for the holiday light competition. Submit photos of your decorated house to holidaylights@hatfield.org. Winners will be selected in the following categories: overall best, most colorful, most creative, most traditional, or classic. Winners will be announced on the Township Facebook page the week of December 27th, and deadlines for submission is the 17th of December. Santa's visit. So the Township Park and Recreation is partnering with the Hatfield Township Police Department and the Police Benevolent Association to bring a little bit of the North Pole to Hatfield. Santa's Workshop, visit that and participate in our Santa's Little Helper activities. You can decorate cards that you can keep or donate. You can make a holiday ornament. You can decorate your own treat, play some great games like reindeer bowling, help an elf, and pin the nose on the snowman. So be sure to bring your letters to Santa and wear your best smile for a photo opportunity. Saturday, December 18th, 11 to 1, here in the Administration Building. Get Fit classes are continuing in November and December. We've got new yoga and Zumba classes and other ones that will also start in January. We did have a virtual pumpkin decorating contest, and our winners, congratulations to them. The funniest was Ashley Pascal. Most creative was Alicia Owens. Best smile was Kaylin Bushman. Best carving was Nicholas Taggart. And most colorful was Gigi Owens. Thanks to everyone who participated. Get in our December activities and come out and see Santa and do some shopping. Thanks.
Great. There's a lot going on in December for sure.
Excuse me.
Okay, Public Safety Committee, we have two items. First is the police coverage discussion with regard to Route 309 and County Line Road. Bill, do you want to, Chief, do you want to field that, or do you want me to hand that to Aaron
I'm
first?
throwing it back and forth with Aaron, but I have no problem talking about
Well,
it.
I would like to make one note on this, Mr. President. It is also an action item. I know we're bouncing
Yeah,
all around
right.
tonight, but just keep in mind that it is item number 4. But we will need action on the Safety Committee report number 2 as well, so.
Right.
Lot-
So
lot-
these are
lot going
two,
on tonight.
both Public Safety Committee items have action items associated. Now it's your turn. Yes, sir.
So as background for anybody listening and a reminder to the commissioners, this basically came up because there's an understanding that we have 2 roadways within the township that actually border another county, Bucks County. That would be Route 309 from Hilltown Pike North and County Line Road from actually just below the railroad tracks on Walnut Street up to the terminus at Susie's Lounge, basically. So New Britain covers one side of the road, we cover one, and on 309, Hilltown covers one side and we cover the southbound side of Route 309. So in order to obtain more enforcement for the area, we had talked about entering an agreement, if the commissioner allows us to do so, where Hilltown would cover our southbound side and we would cover their northbound side. And same thing on County Line Road. So the long and short of it is more enforcement, and now we would have the authority to stop cars, which we cannot do now. It comes down to mostly traffic work. Our residents, their residents, and all the people who travel the road.
And if I'm
Can't
sorry.
stop,
Go
you
ahead.
say you can't stop cars going northbound on 309, but you can stop cars coming south on 309.
Because when we're northbound, we're in Bucks
Right.
County. Our
Okay.
authority ends at the county line.
And same for County Line Road.
Correct. Bucks County's on the other side of both roads. So although we travel that road all the time, there's really nothing we can do. We could be running a speeding detail, and cars on the other side of the road could be zooming past, and there's nothing we can do.
This
I haven't known
building,
that until just now. And people may not have known that until just now.
If you're going to speak it out there, do it now, because hopefully the board's going to pass it, and then everybody's in trouble. This gets approved.
So Chief and I were discussing this earlier because I'd had some questions about it before it came up tonight. And it was my understanding that law enforcement, as long as within 500 feet of their jurisdiction, if they saw something, they could, even if it wasn't in their township, they could enforce that. And the chiefs informed me that, for other Montgomery County departments, for example, Montgomery Township or, Souderton or Tollemenson, they can do that because they're in the county. But correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, we need to do this agreement because it doesn't cross county lines.
Right,
And you've made agreements with the
Montgomery County
DAs.
departments they're in our judicial district, where in Bucks County, they're not. So again, thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Lees. In the course of this, it was not only vetted by the solicitor's office, I reached out to both the Bucks County DA and the Montgomery County DA, and they both also approved it. They said that workable agreement between townships.
This would only be in a roadway.
500 feet from the center of the road, so if somebody happens to drive through a field, I guess we could follow them into the field or whatever, but it's 500 feet from the center of the road.
I mean, if somebody called and they had some kind of issue in Hilltown,
Yeah, we wouldn't be handling any of that. But if we happen to come, if we're in the middle of a traffic stop and a criminal act were to occur, we have the authority to act then, but we have to file the paperwork with the proper judicial district. So we would file in Bucks County, and likewise, Bucks County would file in Montgomery County. Have the actual authority, because right now, we don't have the authority to stop a car. Like, you could blow past us in front of the Walmart, and we do not have the authority to stop that car.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I appreciate it.
Omit that from the minutes.
Except for
If we approve this, what time does this go into effect?
Look at the time.
Got one more night to speak.
right.
Even in speaking with Commissioner Lees about this, I know somewhere in the past there was some type of agreement like this floating around in my early days, but I never saw it. Now I physically have seen it. And this was sparked by Montgomery Township doing the same thing with their neighboring communities in Bucks County. And in looking at it, it actually brought up what is probably a hole in policing for a lot of departments that I would think other people are going to jump on this now. It's not a matter of revenue. Enforcement isn't just a matter of writing tickets. It's a matter of being out there, being able to stop cars, being able to speak to motorists and try to resolve issues. The people on Walnut Street want more enforcement. In this case, we could give them more enforcement with the increased manpower from another department, and likewise us to them.
So I'd also brought this up to you, Chief, with all the concerns that are going on with the police and accountability to civil authorities. What accountability do we have over Hilltown and New Britain PD if, well, I doubt that this would happen, but if, God forbid, they weren't professional with residents of our township, what recourse do we have?
Certainly, if any of those things were to come to light, although those officers don't answer to me, and likewise, our officers don't answer to Chief Englehart, it's a matter of we would immediately communicate, and if this became something that was untenable, that we couldn't possibly get cooperation from a neighboring department, the severability clause in the contract, if you will, would allow us to pull out of it and say, that's it, we're not doing it.
Okay.
All right. Any questions, comments, or concerns? All right, so that's an action item. That is action item number 4, Resolution 21-32. Chair will make a motion for approval of the intermunicipal agreement between Hilltown and New Britain, or with Hilltown and New Britain Police Coverage, Route 309. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lees. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of Resolution 21-32, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Okay, next is actually to begin the process of the civil service to hire a police officer, and that requires a motion. Chief, do you want to just give us a quick update on why we're doing that?
So we have an open patrol officer's position, we have an open corporal's position at this point, so this is allowing us to promote someone to corporal, allowing us to hire to fill a position that we already had. We were at 29 officers, and this will bring us back to 29 officers, not adding anybody. So it's filling the open position of corporal and then being permitted to test for patrol to fill an officer who has left the department.
All right, so with that, unless there's any questions or comments, I'll ask, is there a motion to begin the civil service process?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Lees, second by Commissioner Andrus. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Thank you, Chief. Thanks for everything that you do, and the entire department. We're going to jump to Finance Committee. Commissioner Andrews.
Nothing. I think Aaron's going to talk for me later on.
I think so too. That's right. He's
You
going
like
to take the
present
floor.
the budget, Commissioner?
I can probably do a lot faster than you can.
That's true.
Well, we have good news with the budget, so it's not, I mean,
I'll make it quick.
yeah, is it, well, I don't know. Is it what,
Quickish.
60, 70 slides, you said?
485.
All right, so, so we are through our committee reports, I think. I'm just double checking. Yep, we're through all of them. We've covered a number of our action items. We're at action item number 5, and that first one is the county hazard mitigation plan. And so why don't I take a motion for approval, and then we'll discuss. Is there a motion for approval with regard to Resolution 21-33?
So moved.
Motion by Vice President Rogers, second by Commissioner Andrus. Aaron, I think you have this one, right?
Sure. Commissioners, I would consider this a housekeeping item. The township has its own hazard mitigation plan that was developed over years by our emergency management coordinator, which the board adopted a few years ago. What we learned through the process as we were and still continuously meeting with residents, mostly in Commissioner Lee's ward, that were affected by Ida, we just learned that over the years the township has not formally approved the county hazard mitigation plan. So we'll have ours plan, the county's plan, which will then make the township eligible for funding when certain disasters occur, which we are eligible now. Is not as if there was a gap in eligibility, but this was something that was recommended to us, and it's in front of the board for approval, so we can check that off the list.
Right. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of Resolution 21-33, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Next, is there a motion for approval with regard to the traffic signal easement agreement for 491 40-foot road, Pulte Homes?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus.
Second.
Second by Vice President Rogers. Aaron, I think you have this one as well.
Yeah, sure. This is an easement agreement that will allow the township access to the entranceway at the new Pulte development on 40-foot road at 491 40-foot. As you can see at Clemens, there's a signal there. This will be the main entrance to that 55 and over community that's being built now. The easement will allow township consultants and vendors and staff access to this area to maintain and make any changes to that signal in the future. Just as a reminder to the public, even though it's a state road, the township still owns and maintains all traffic signals along all of the state roads in the township. That is one of those unfunded mandates given to the township from the state.
Right.
So this gives us access to make fixes over the years.
All right, so it's an easement authorization?
Easement agreement, yep, motion to approve.
Yep, and so, so is there a, well, we already took a motion, so any questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? All right, then I'll call a question. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Action item number 7. Is there a motion to approve the advertising for the bid package with regard to the pool retile project with Leisure Pool and Lazy River?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus, second by Commissioner Lees. Got 7 and 8.
Sure.
Not
I'd be happy
together,
to give
but
up
yeah.
8, but I'll take 7. 7, this is some improvement to the aquatic center that was discussed with the pool advisory board with Commissioner Andrus through our budget process. This work won't be done until early 22. It's in the budget. However, we realized the cost was going to be above $20,000, which then requires a publicly bidded process. So we would like to begin that process because, as everyone knows right now, buying material for anything takes longer than it used to. So the vendor gets the green light from us. At the December meeting, the board will be in a position to award this. But ultimately, it's good for the residents, retiling the leisure pool area and the lazy river, and we have a lot of improvements to the aquatic center scheduled for 22, and we'll make a nice refresh of the facility.
All right, any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of that motion with regard to the pool retile project, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. All right, last is our budget, our 2020 draft budget. And Aaron, how about I hand you the ball before we take the motion to, or should I make the motion to
Whatever you
advertise
like.
first. Why don't you do the presentation and then we'll take the motion to advertise?
Prove it without the presentation.
Well,
would be
we can do
better.
that. We can, what'd you say, 468?
I don't even want to tell you how many slides, but I will
slides?
go fast. However you want to do it. Mr.
Why don't
President.
you go ahead? I'll take the motion.
Okay.
And then, assuming that that is approved, then we will have appropriately advertised our ordinance for the budget. Is that correct, Mr. Solicitor?
You guys are all giving me headaches today, so absolutely. That's
There's
the
a lot
prop-
of moving pieces
Yeah,
tonight. That's
That's the
right.
proper procedure.
All right, can we fade the lights? I'm kidding, Justin.
No sleeping.
Not the
No sleeping, I'm
Yeah, that's
sorry.
right, that's right.
No
The
napping.
crowd is now getting into more leisure position.
Now that everyone's
Tina's
left,
getting
and Tina's
comfortable
napping. Tina, would you like a pillow? You have your bag. Former Commissioner Brown, you're okay to last through the duration of this? Okay, here we go. Just making sure. We inherited some Tarrington folks from the HOA meeting, so this should be good.
Right.
Commissioners, it's been a long meeting, a long week, a long year, so I am going to get through this quickly. We have discussed this at length. The good news, like Mr. President says, is we are presenting here tonight our 8th straight year without a budget, without a tax increase. We certainly have a budget.
without a budget, holy cow.
Hard to function without a budget.
That's it.
So as you'll see, additional services, a lot of good improvements coming in 22 without an increase. But before we get into 22, I have to take a quick peek at 2021. And what was exciting about 2021, and it was a great year when you look back. And I promised the commissioners a quick budget presentation. That was before I started to put it together. And I realized all the great stuff the commissioners did in 2021 that we have to point out. We can't gloss over because sometimes we spend years planning, years having town hall meetings with residents, years behind the scenes doing work, and so many times those efforts just aren't noticed by the residents, which is very frustrating for what we do for a living. But this year, in 2021, was the year of the visible public improvements, ones that our residents have seen, continue to see, and continue to enjoy, and we really, I believe, improved the quality of life in Hatfield Township in 2021, without question. So what did the commissioners do in 2021? Cowpath and Orvilla, a public project that the commissioners heard for years that would never happen. We'll never fix it. There's so many moving parts to it that's going to cost too much money. The commissioners are never going to get it done. We've heard for 30 years, this is never going to happen. Well, the commissioners fix it in 2021. Eyesore on Cowpath, and we're going to look through all of them, but I want to show a quick overview of the project. It's 2 minutes, bear with me. I think it's a nice recap of a project that we discussed in this room probably thousands of times. And this might be the last one, so let's give it 2 minutes just to, I think, enjoy and appreciate the efforts. And thanks to McMahon for putting this together.
Wow, that gives it, the aerial really gives it a completely different, even after we fixed it, and we've seen pictures of it many times, and even the aerial for portions of it, but to see the broader aerial, that was quite a, it's an interesting perspective, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's important to look back and to see all the things that took place to get us to the finish line. I'll never forget the decision the commissioners made back in 15 to acquire the 3 properties. Right? We heard from the residents. We struck out on a few grants. Commissioners decided to move forward even without guaranteed funding to realign. But we moved, and that moved us up the list, and we received funding and fixed it. It's pretty exciting project to be a part of.
Yeah, you know, those homeowners, in addition to McMahon and our staff, you and our staff, those folks were heroes too. I mean, those were there were 3, it was 3 homes, right?
3 homes and a gas station.
3 homes and the gas station, and while I don't want to minimize the gas station no longer being there, obviously, but the 3 homes, these folks, some of them had lived there for many, many years, and they left, and they worked with us, and they were just fantastic about it. And you know, there was a real understanding of the safety issues, and you could tell they came to a number of our meetings. You could tell that they understood the import of this, and so it was a real genuine thing to see from them, and we appreciate it. They're great residents for doing that.
Granddaughter of one got to cut the ribbon. We'll see a picture of that later, thanks to Tom and Bob. So yeah, no, it was great, without question. And along that same corridor, commissioners acquired a property on Cowpath, which we'd heard constant feedback about for having a dilapidated structure, an old dry cleaner, and a bike shop. Unfortunately, had to move out, and the location was vacant for years. Commissioners purchased it, and with our friends from the local 542, thanks to former Vice President Larry Hughes, was able to coordinate the demolition for these structures at no cost to the taxpayers, as well as the 3 houses on Orvilla, as well as the house on Vine that Vice President Rogers talked about earlier. Brought digital signs, upgraded our communication to our residents as you're driving around. We went from the 1970s style to a modern look, a modern way to communicate. No more employees on a ladder putting letters out. Now we do it all through our phone. And we have 2 beautiful digital signs, one at Public Works, one at School Road Park. That is a great added feature to the township. We paved School Road Park, the parking lot, the trails, added signage to make sure people could navigate our new and very popular trail throughout the township, Frick's Trail. Vine Street acquisition, like Vice President Rogers said, all the feedback he's getting from the residents in his ward. We were able to acquire this property this year, and now it's a nice chunk of open space right by the Aquatic Center. Again, at no cost to the taxpayers, thanks to the operating engineers, Local 542. In-house employees at our Public Works Department built 2 significant pedestrian trails along the Frick's Trail that were required by DEP. We have 1 more to go. Celebrated one of our residents, Dr. Harris, turning 99, and the following week we were able to help Dr. Harris get vaccinated from COVID, thanks to our partners over at Lansdale Hospital, which was pretty neat. We celebrated Anna Feingold turning 100 earlier this year with a drive-by celebration, and I'm told Anna's still doing well. She joined us on a Zoom public meeting, and we had a good time with that earlier in the year. We recognized and celebrated one of our residents, Lou Farrell, and the organization he began with Bread Drop, making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the homeless. And unfortunately, more people are in need because of the impacts of COVID. We welcomed and invited and recognized Super Mac, Dr. Mayank Amin from Skipback Pharmacy, and his team of volunteer heroes who vaccinated tens of thousands of people throughout our region, and were real big help with many efforts of ours throughout the year. Celebrated a Garden of Health partnership with the 8 additional acres at Clemens Park, and the commissioners then leased that 8 acres to the Garden of Health, a local nonprofit who are going to grow produce for low-income families throughout our region to have access to healthy foods. It's going to look a little something like this over the next 10 years. Not only produce, but greenhouses and other features, educational seminars, volunteer opportunities, partnerships with the local schools. There's a lot of great ideas that Garden of Health has for that space that the commissioners leased. We recognized Sheikh Anwar Muhammad and celebrated Juneteenth together as a community, and just recently opened the Hatfield Museum, which Larry Stevens and his team at the Historical Society transformed an aging building into a modern, if that makes sense, a modern museum. But I think everyone that has been through there has been impressed, and we can encourage many more to go see it. We invested $750,000 into paving roads throughout the township, making more accessible routes. This is a quick look at an 11-year snapshot of all the roads now we paved in Hatfield, and you see a lot of colors. Keep in mind, too, some of our major corridors, 40-foot in Orvilla, as well as Welsh, and some others are owned by the state, Unionville owned by the county. So the impact is clear when you look at that, and the commitment by the commissioners to pave and fix our infrastructure has been there for many years now. So looking at the 22 budget, quick snapshot of the organizational chart. The ultimate decision makers in every local government are our residents. Residents vote an award system here in Hatfield and choose 5 commissioners who then appoint the township manager and the consultants, and then it trickles down from there throughout the organization. We have many appointed boards here in Hatfield: the Sewer Authority, Civil Service, Parks and Rec, Planning, Zoning Hearing Board, Pool Advisory Board, Shade Tree Commission, the EAC, the IDA, the North Penn Health Hospital and Education Authority, the North Penn Water Authority, which is represented by Vice President Rogers now, and a vacancy board. So all those boards appointed by our elected officials here in Hatfield. When you look at our budget for 22, the priorities are abundantly clear. The commissioners want to make sure our community is safe. Roughly 60% of the budget goes toward police and fire protection. In addition, significant investments in infrastructure improvement, more investment in the stormwater management we'll talk about. A lot of programming, as you saw, as you heard Commissioner Zimmerman's update from tonight. That's just a quick snapshot of what goes on in December here. It's like that every month. So looking ahead in 22, general fund revenue, about 11.7, expenditures 11.6. Every fund overseen by the township, it equals roughly $17.5 million worth of revenue, with expenses somewhat under that. So those are all every penny that is spent in Hatfield Township, and we'll talk some of the highlights here. By the way, keep in mind, the entire budget is available on the website as well as in the lobby, which that outlines every fund, every line, every penny spent, and every penny collected throughout the township. We're not gonna go through it all tonight, but we did in our first workshop for the budget. So where does all this money come from? Primarily real estate taxes, earned income taxes, local service tax from the state of Pennsylvania, and from our partner, our municipal partner of Hatfield Borough. So what that looks like in a pie chart view is this. The majority of the revenue is real estate, and you see the earned income in red, and then it goes down from there. The intergovernmental is Pennsylvania, with pension aid, money for infrastructure, and then Hatfield Borough contributes significantly for police services, as well as for debt service. Where does it go? So that's where it comes in, that's where it comes from. We'll talk about specifically where it goes, but just keep in mind a snapshot of your property taxes. Only 10% of it comes to the township. So when you're paying your property tax bill, 10% comes to the township, 10 goes to the county, and by far the lion's share, 80% goes to the school district, and that's pretty consistent in every community throughout Pennsylvania. So some examples of real estate payments to the township. Median assessed value is $149,000 in Hatfield. So if you look at $140,000 assessed value, that doesn't mean the value of your home if you would sell it. That's your assessed valuation. You're paying Hatfield $365 for the year for all the services that we provide. The earned income tax is 1/2 of 1%. The other half of that percent goes to the school district. You look at our expenses, like I said, the lion's share of this is always going to be for the police. Our first priority is to keep the community safe. From there, it's public works with the infrastructure, fire protection, and administration, among other items. This is just a quick snapshot of where your total tax dollar goes. Not just real estate, not just local income tax, but state income tax as well as your federal income tax. So this is just based on a scenario of a household with $63,000, $483 income, and at the median assessed value for a home in Hatfield Township. So it just gives the residents a sense of all of your tax dollars going out. You see Hatfield Township at that 7% sliver. right? You see the school district here and the federal government here. But we're gonna show you for that little sliver some of the services that you get. So for a total tax picture of $729 a year, a resident in Hatfield gets a fully accredited, now 3-time police department, fire protection from 2 very active and thriving volunteer fire departments, 12 employee public works department that takes care of our infrastructure, snow removal, stormwater maintenance, road paving, lane painting, all the traffic signals like we talked about, bridges, basins, a lot of mowing, Parks and Rec staff and programming, an award-winning aquatic center named the best in Montgomery County several times, significant sized park, which hopefully we'll be able to expand one day soon, Clemens Park, which we'll be developing here soon, and I'll have a picture of that right here. Excuse me, if awarded, some outstanding grants that we have. What I talked about with Garden of Health, you'll see at number 3. In addition, a public bathroom at number 2, an inclusive playground at number 1, a redesigned naturalized basin at 5, and additional parking at 4. We hope to begin these improvements in 2022. Schweiker Park, jointly owned with Hatfield Borough. Also this year, we resurfaced the pickleball courts, which was a very successful project. We met with several residents earlier tonight with President Zipfel, and many of them belong in the league and play pickleball. Walnut Street Cabin, Tree Nursery, Melody Brook Park, a nature preserve, Stratford Park, a dog park, an arboretum, street hockey, open space, a trail, another great trail. So all of those things for a $729 investment from a median resident in Hatfield Township. I ask you to compare what you get back from every other level of government, and you tell me what you think is the best value. Some of the highlights looking forward to 2022. We talked about the no tax increase. Overall expenses, thanks to the commissioners, we were able to contain many costs. Increase is only 1%. Pension costs down significantly thanks to some good decisions made over the years by the pension committee and some very significant market gains in 2019 and 2020. Helped us reduce the cost of our pensions. Both pension funds 100% funded for the first time in over 30 years here in Hatfield. Almost $1 million in the roads. New playgrounds coming to School Road Park and the community park and Clemens Park if we get the grant. A new and exciting mural that we hope to unveil to the public next month, electronically, digitally here in the room, and then will be painted next year. We'll talk more about that next month. Stormwater management study, Vice President Rogers asked to include in the budget. We have $100,000 to look at the entire township and find our trouble spots as far as how we manage water, and from there create a capital plan on them we can pursue to make some significant fixes. $200,000 into a reserve fund, which we began in 14 and now has almost $1 million. Then the American Recovery Act money, which was stimulus money given to all government entities, which Hatfield will receive $1.7 million that primarily will then, at the direction of the commissioners, go back into stormwater management improvements throughout the township. So the timing of that was pretty good as far as having now a study, having funds to actually implement some of the findings of the study. It all worked out. Certainly wasn't planned that way. Some other special projects coming our way in 2022. These are the grant applications we currently have submitted. We should be hearing something about the first one this week that we can publicly announce. The design to come up with a solution on to making Welsh and Orvilla a better intersection. We partner with Townsend Township, so all costs associated with that project will be shared between the 2 municipalities. Clemens Park development we talked about. Liberty Bell Trail construction, we hope to hear about that application as well, to build a portion of that, which we actually talked about with some of the Tarrington folks earlier tonight. So if that's awarded, that's a 22 project as well. And then we have been in constant communications with Pima and several of Commissioner Lee's residents who are really struggling with when we get heavy rain events. So we're going to do our best to possibly acquire or mitigate somehow. Also coming in 2022, and Commissioner Andrews might throw something at me now because this one's been on the budget presentation for years, but we did receive almost $1 million grant to synchronize every signal along the 463 corridor, so 40-foot in CalPath. 11 signals in total. We've been going very slowly through the process of implementing this, but the fiber is very close to being connected to all the fiber optic line to all 11 signals. So we'll be able to, in 22, they'll be communicating with each other. We'll be able to move traffic through that corridor more efficiently, which is very exciting, and we've been working on that for years. And Commissioner Andrus kicked the process off many years ago. Another project that everyone said would never happen is happening. The bids came in for and this is a PennDOT project, for the 309 Sumneytown Connector Road. Alan Myers, low bidder, $42 million, recently awarded, begins in 2022. This is to take truck traffic out of our local roads and get them to the turnpike as fast as you can. Phase 2, which you see on the screen, is coming our way. It's a 5-6 year construction timing, but it is out there, it's happening. You'll start to see some activity out there next year. So what happens now, commissioners, if we move forward with this? And again, this is toward the end of a process that begins months ago and happens throughout the year. It'll be that the budget itself and every line item for any resident to review and scrutinize and ask questions is available online, is available in this packet tonight, also available in the lobby. We have one meeting in December for the board to approve the budget. And just lastly, nice picture of the granddaughter you mentioned, Mr. President, who got to cut the ribbon. We as a staff and commissioners, we are honored to have our positions here and be able to serve this community, and we'll never take that for granted, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well done.
Thank you.
I mean, that's every year. I don't mean to sound repetitive, but it's extraordinary every year when we have the presentation that you do, when we realize what the staff does, and as kind as Aaron is in giving the commissioners credit for this. I say this all the time, and I've said it for years, and I'll continue to say it. The five of us, ours is just a decision-making role. The people who really run the township are Aaron and Chief and the entire staff, and they do an unbelievable job. So I can't express enough our thanks as the commissioners on behalf of the entire township of how great a job you do, Aaron, and your entire staff does. I really think it's top-notch. There's no comparison compared to other townships. I hear it all the time, and brings a smile to my face. I have to tell you, the thing that when I've heard you say this once or twice before, and it really hit home tonight for me, was find me another government entity for which you receive this type of value for this amount of money. And I think it's just it's unparalleled. So on behalf of the commissioners, I want to thank you and the entire staff.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for all your support, always.
So now the fun part, the process. There is tonight there is a motion to advertise that budget, which is 8 years in a row, no tax increase, as presented. And so that's an action item for tonight. And the advertisement is so that we can vote on it officially at our next meeting in December. So is there a motion to advertise the ordinance for the budget adoption and maintaining tax rates for 2022? Is there such a motion? So moved. Motion by Commissioner Andrus, second by Commissioner Zimmerman. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of that motion to advertise the presentation of the 2022 budget with no tax increase for the eighth straight year, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved, and we can advertise so we can hopefully approve at our next meeting. All right, so that's our last action item. Is township staff reports. Aaron, I think you're probably that's everything. You're done.
My voice entirely. Good for me.
We do have an action item for the solicitor this evening, so that's why we started off with an amendment to our agenda. Would you like to take that, John? Would you like to walk us through?
Yes, I have 200 slides to go over. That's it. What's before the board tonight is a real estate tax assessment appeal for 80 CalPath Road. The school district filed a tax assessment appeal against the property owner back in 2019. this settlement stipulation would resolve that assessment appeal for an increase of $3,658. We are recommending that assessment appeal stipulation.
Is that assessment the 3,000 some odd
That's
thousand?
an increase in addition to the other taxes that they currently are paying.
Got it. And for those of you who don't know, this is a process by which we are one of 3 entities, correct, that reach this
Yes,
agreement?
by law, you have the county, you have the school district, you have a property owner could file appeal, or the township. And what this is resolving a school district appeal against the property owner. Good result for everyone.
It happens from time to time, and in this scenario, we are on the plus side in the sense that there will be more revenue brought in. Sometimes we're on the negative side. That happens too.
This is the daycare right I guess by the Dunkin' Donuts. You know, it's funny, I remember when I was a kid on the school bus looking at this daycare because it had the best playground I always wanted to play in, and my bus just went right by it. So when I saw the picture today, it brought back some sad memories, actually. So.
Playground's still there if you need to use it, Jeff.
We won't go there, but the subject property is 80 Cowpath Road for the public. So, thank you. That's all I have tonight.
All right. With that, I will call the question. Well, not call the question. Is there a motion to accept and enter into the settlement agreement described by the solicitor?
So moved.
Motion by Vice President Rogers, second by Commissioner Andrus. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Last but not least, citizens' comments. Any other citizens' comments? Yes, Commissioner Brown. He did. So
Mr. President, before you adjourn, if you could announce that we have to go into an executive session, please, for
Yep, so if we can convince Aaron to do that on a regular basis, Commissioner Brown, you're welcome to come back and enjoy that presentation or some version of that anytime you like. All right, so as Mr. Bebro just mentioned, we are moving into executive session to discuss personnel. We will not be returning afterwards, so with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Lees, second by Commissioner Andrus. All in favor of adjournment? Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thanks, folks, for coming out.